Good morning, and I appreciate everybody coming. And I know we just went through this a couple of weeks ago, but we're going to go through it again. And first of all, we'd like to call the Public Service Commission. Oh, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Eden, I think you explained to us real well about why y'all needed to get two more employees to overlook this. But one thing I'd like for you to explain to everybody today is the responsibilities of the state oversight of Plant Vogel and the responsibilities of the federal government.
Sure. Hear me now?
Well, let me turn you on, then maybe I can.
I mean, really, simply, the two responsibilities. The federal is more of a safety. Their oversight is safety. With the Public Service Commission, our oversight would be financial. We are watching the expenses that occur at Vogel, and ultimately will approve or disallow them as Georgia Power submits them to us.
And explain to the public how this will have effect if they override on the consumer. And why it's so important for us to look after this.
It's extremely important because the project is, I believe, it's the largest construction project that's going on in the country today. As a matter of fact, I was just going over it with someone. If you add just in Georgia, if you add the Dome, the new Brave Stadium, and the Savannah Port together, that would still be only about 30% of the Plant Vogel project. And so this is an extremely large project. And what's happening there now is, and so the commission, we represent the public. We provide oversight to Georgia Power, and we allow or disallow these costs that come through. Obviously, just like any major construction project or any construction project, there will be some change orders that will ultimately benefit the project. And so we would look at approving those. Some of them could be potentially disallowed. And anything that is approved goes into the rate base. So it affects not just the public and those on fixed incomes, their rates, but it affects businesses' rates. The Public Service Commission, we play a major role, as does Vogel, in economic development. Any major manufacturer coming here to Georgia, one of the first things they're going to look at is what their utility rates are going to be and how reliable they are. Did that answer your question,
yes,
Madam Chairman?
Yes, thank you. Do I have any questions from the committee? And would you like to say anything else while we?
Well, we you know, I'll be as brief as possible. We went over a lot in the previous budget. We've lost a lot of folks in our utilities division with the budget cuts over the years. We're asking for two positions. We feel that we need to get them on board now. We're really getting into the meat and potatoes of the project. It's now going above ground. So a lot of the dirt and the grading and that type of issues are gone. We've got one staff member that's almost fully dedicated to it. Now, we do shift staff members around with workload, but on a day-to-day, we've got one, and there are literally going to be thousands of pages of documents coming through the commission, and we'd like to get somebody on board now because there are going to be some big hearings and some big expenses coming through.
Do I have any questions? Thank you, and thank you so much. Yes, I got a question. I'm sorry, I did not see you. Representative Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What impact do you think not having these positions is having in terms of the project?
Well, it's hard to speculate about what not having them. I think that we've been able to perform our role in an adequate manner, but what we are anticipating is a much larger workload coming through now because we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of the project, and when you're talking about I guess with benefits, our request is approximately $180,000. When you compare that project to the billions of dollars that are being spent at Plant Vogel, when you compare that request, it's infinitesimal. And we believe fortunately we're able to hire consultants where we can, and they're of value to us. But we also need the full-time employees providing continuity and directing the consultants on this project. So I think it's very important that we get these positions going forward. I think that we've had adequate employees in the past, but we would like to shift more into a proactive mode versus the reactive mode that we're in now. Did that answer your question?
I think so. One further, if I may.
Yes, please.
Is there any correlation between not having these positions filled and the cost overruns? Is there any correlation between?
To answer your question, I would say no, because we're not there. We're not running the project. That is up to Georgia Power and their subcontractors. But when there are cost overruns, they will come to us with them, and then we will have to scrutinize those overruns and determine whether they're prudent expenses, which would go into rate bases, or imprudent expenses, which would not go into the rate base. And so that's why we need that staff, is to be able to review potential overruns that could be coming down the line. But there's really, whether there were overruns or not, there's really nothing that the staff could do. We keep a consultant on project, but he's not managing the project. He's just reviewing what they're doing.
Thank you.
Just if you don't mind, just to clarify, the staff oversight wouldn't eliminate overruns, but it could influence how much of those overruns ratepayers pay. So if an overrun was imprudent, ratepayers wouldn't have to pay for it. In order to determine whether an overrun is imprudent, somebody has to look at it and say, yes, this particular cost was imprudent. So, and the commission would have hearings to hear testimony on whether or not costs were imprudent. So if nobody says a cost was imprudent, then the company gets to recover it.
Any other questions? Thank you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Lee Beckman with the ports. Thank you, Lee, for coming. I think we're all anxious to hear about how the deepening of the ports are coming, and just give us a report on the ports, please. Just a brief summary of what's going on down there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for having us. And on behalf of our executive director, he wishes he could be here, but he had some meetings with customers who'd flown a long way to come see us, and I couldn't reschedule those meetings. So.
Oh, well, that's perfectly all right. We're so glad to have you here, and we need to take care of these customers first.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We got to make money first.
Right.
You'll see the document I handed out goes over our kind of the latest on our harbor deepening. Also on the back side, you'll see fiscal year 13 by the numbers, year in review. I would like to report the first 6 months of our fiscal year, July through December went real well. So an 8% increase in overall business for total tonnage, 5.8% increase for total container units. We went from about 1.4 million container units last year to about 1.54 this year, so sharp increase year over year on containerized trade. Brunswick continues to grow leaps and bounds, with bulk cargoes leading the way at about 12% growth. And today, Brunswick, in terms of auto machinery units, is the #1 port in the nation for auto imports, #2 port in the nation for auto exports. So they're doing very, very well down there as well. So we have good things to report the first 6 months, and we expect to be able to report good things for the fiscal year in June. As far as the harbor deepening goes, we've got our little bit of money in the bond package. The governor has put $35 million in his budget request. The That should finalize the state portions of the funding, or the state share of the overall project. We believe that the federal omnibus bill gave us the proper authority to begin or enter into a contract with the Corps of Engineers to begin construction on this project. We're still waiting official confirmation on that from OMB up in Washington to confirm that their lawyers believe that the language does just that. And hopefully we'll be able to start or sign that contract in the next 3 or 4 months. Then after that, we'll be able to begin construction, or at least begin the contracting process to begin construction on this project.
One thing I want to point out that you didn't point out, we're all great that the ports are a big economic engine for the state, but also you probably think, you know, what's the ports giving back to the state, and the ports did put $11 million, $11 or $11.5 million back in our treasury to pay for some of the bonds, so they are repaying the state for the bonds.
Yes, ma'am. We had some projects in years past that the state has paid for on terminal inside of our gates, and we're paying the state back for those projects. So there's no impact or no cost to the state, hopefully, in the future or now.
Thank you. Do I have any questions? I thought you had a question.
Well, he's covered it.
Okay, good. Thank you, and thank you so much for coming.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Appreciate it.
World Congress Center.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. If you'll introduce yourself and who's with you, please.
Absolutely. I'm Kevin Duvall with the World Congress Center. Sherry Spinks, our Chief Financial Officer, and Lindsay Perdue, our Director of Government Affairs. On behalf of Frank Poe, our Executive Director, he's out of the office today, visiting with customers also, so he was unable to make it today. We're passing out a packet for you to review. But Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, thanks for your time today. We appreciate your continued support of the World Congress Center Authority. What we've given you is our requested FY15 capital outlay budget through the Governor's Office, submitted through the Governor's Office. You'll see within that packet there's 3 items totaling a total of $5.35 million. One item is for Centennial Olympic Park. As you're aware, we manage Centennial Olympic Park, the day-to-day operations out there, and after 18 plus years, we continue to manage, and we need a little rehabilitation on one of our reflection pools out there that is right in the center of the park for $1.1 million. The mechanics are 18 years old. Day-to-day folks are in and out and around the fountain down there, and we just feel like we need some money to upgrade the mechanics of that. The second request we have is for Building C of the World Congress Center. Phase 4 opened in 2002. We're on our 12th year in Phase 4, and unfortunately, or fortunately, we've had a lot of visitors come through that building, inclusive of Final Fours, SEC championships, etc., and a lot of international attendees, and we're just wearing the thread out on the carpet that we have in Building C. And if you've been over the World Congress Center, you know we have a few thousand yards of carpet, and when you go to replace it, you can't just patch and go from there. So we're requesting about $2.25 million worth of appropriation to replace the carpet in Building C of the World Congress Center. And kind of our final request is for the Building B entrance to the World Congress Center. You're probably familiar with it if you've been to the Thomas Murphy Ballroom. That's the entrance that we have right there. We'd like to update and keep up with our competition, our new competition in Nashville and other cities that continue to upgrade their facilities. We're requesting $2 million just to upgrade that entrance area and arrival point, where about 60% of our folks that come to the World Congress Center come through and utilize Building B. And so those are our requests today. We also passed out our annual report that summarizes FY13. For the World Congress Center Authority in total, we had a $1.1 billion economic impact. For the World Congress Center alone, it's $834 million. A little over 1 million people came through the facility at the World Congress Center. And I don't think I have anything else to add unless Sherry or Lindsay have anything, but I'll be happy to take any questions you may have today.
Do I have any questions?
on a carpet.
Yes, sir. That's just part of it.
Representative Tanksley.
I'd just like to say I really like the design concept for Building B.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do there and what it means to the state of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You will be using carpet that's manufactured in Georgia, won't you?
Well, we will definitely have that opportunity to do that. We have to get a design first, and I can't. That will be on the top of the list. I can't 100% guarantee that, though. But I mean, I'm not sure where we. In the past, it's come from overseas. Yeah.
Pardon?
It's come from overseas in the past. So Axminster from overseas, but we definitely will chase that down as a priority.
Do I have any comments on that? Yes.
I understand.
Representative Mayo.
Kevin, I appreciate all of the work you've done. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the wonderful work you all are doing at the World Congress Center. It's a great asset for the state. And I would say to that point, though, Dalton is not too far, and we certainly appreciate it if you considered the carpet capital we have right here in Georgia.
The carpet capital.
And those renovations are certainly warranted. I think the number of people visiting the World Congress Center every year is pretty significant, and the conventions we're attracting is something I'd like to continue and want us to be very competitive. So I think the request is reasonable, and I'll certainly encourage the members on this committee to provide whatever assistance we can and make sure we continue uplifting our great asset. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Do I have any other comments? Yes, Senator Ginn.
Frank Ginn said one of the things that I get to serve on the oversight authority for the Congress Center as well as chairman of economic development, and I want to make damn sure that they get it, that we understand that it's going to be Georgia carpet. So
we understand. Understood.
All right, thank you.
Grow the economy in Georgia.
All right, thank you so much, and appreciate you being here with us, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for your time. We will correct.
Department of Ag. If you would just introduce yourself and who can't, not that you need any introduction, and I sort of tell you what we want. You know, we missed you the other day, and glad you can come before us. But your staff did a remarkable job, and you would have been proud of them.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Gary Black, Commissioner of Agriculture, and thank the Chair for your gracious excuse slip that I tried to obtain Friday. I thought it was a good idea that we. I don't think it's appropriate for there to be any more federal inspectors on the farms of Georgia. So I've been in D.C. trying to make sure that doesn't happen. We'll see how well that battle goes. We have a Department of Agriculture in Georgia that works with people, and I'm not interested in seeing more activity from the FDA. So thank you for an excused absence, and we'll keep that fight going. Y'all, I think just from a high point standpoint, thank you for observing our need, and we again thank the governor, because y'all know we've been working now for 3 years to try to address the salary needs, and that's our one and only legislative priority this year. And we put an aggressive package together. It was real aggressive, but and the governor's was very gracious in giving us some steps towards really where we need to be. And if you look on, I think maybe I would call your attention to one, and I know, Madam Chair, y'all asked for some additional information. We've tried to provide this in the spreadsheet today, but when you look on the spreadsheet and you see we have beginning salaries, many of them in the low 20s, and these are actually positions where people can stop commerce. These are people that are dedicated folks, but we need to help them. And our goal was to try to get to 29 and 35 for starting salaries. We're not going to get there, even if you're able to help us a little more. We won't get there, but certainly we're taking a step in the right direction with the proposal. I think my folks would confirm to you, probably told you to get us to 28 and 23. We kind of had an intermediate goal that, boy, if we could find another 300 or so thousand, that would get us to 30 and 26. And $30,000, that's what a meat inspector should make starting. I mean, they should make more, but that sure is a good goal. And just any assistance, y'all been so encouraging, and I'm grateful for that. But we'll keep plugging and make sure we're running efficiently, and we're putting, Madam Chair, money back in the state coffers too, and making sure our farmers markets are running better and more efficient and more profitable. And we just thank you for sending a little bit back our way so we can help our people.
Well, we will be meeting on this and talking about it, and I think everybody on the committee realized after talking with your staff last week the real urgency of this. The next thing you did want some wording changed about inspections. If
Yes.
you could give Tracy that wording, and we'll work with you about.
Yes, ma'am. And it's my understanding that's in total.
You have it, okay, about the
Yeah.
wording that changed, make it easier for you to move inspectors around.
Right. Yes, ma'am. This is pretty specific in the original budget, and what in our program areas from program-based budgeting, we just have 3 that are directly under our that are our employees, and that's marketing, administration, and consumer protection. And in consumer protection, that's fuel inspectors, meat inspectors, food inspectors, all those kind of folks. If we've got flexibility for that to be in consumer protection, that'll help us. It's a little more shotgun approach rather than the rifled nature of the language that's in the original budget.
Right. We understand. Do I have any questions? Okay. Representative Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, thank you for coming before us today, and thank you for your great work in D.C.
Thanks, sir.
We all applaud the effort there, and let's get them the hell out of here, right? The feds out of our way. You may have mentioned this earlier, and I apologize if I missed it. One of the questions that we talked about the other day, and the person who filled in for you again did an excellent job, and was talking about what it cost us to train these guys. Did you just touch on that? Is that on
Yes,
this?
It's actually on the broader spreadsheet that you have. And,
did I?
And thank you, Representative Clark, for a great. That's a great question, because we have, we've talked about this, and but putting a pencil to it's another thing that we'll hopefully come back to some data that you can see there. Let's look at meat inspection. I guess that's probably the worst one. It's at the top. First of all, if you'll see that we have an attrition rate of 37%. That means everybody in the room knows what that means. We lose a third of them every year, and it's salary related. It'd be real, and really we ought to be having people here with at least an associate's degree in animal science or something like that. Shouldn't just, we do have some good people that don't have those, but I think our objective of the future should be to have those trained people, at least with a 2-year degree from Mayback or a technical school somewhere. But it's impossible to do that. But on top of that attrition rate, if you'll see, in meat inspection, you have to have a supervisor literally on that person's hip for nearly a year, because you don't just. That's a pretty interesting training session, and then we have some ancillary training that we would send that person to. Well, we put another 24, and that's our best. It doesn't make the numbers are important, but what if it's 18 or if it's 28? Either way, a third of that money's gone every year, and I would suggest to you we'd be a whole lot better off taking that money and investing in the people, and we'll slow down the attrition. We'll close the back door, and we'll keep some good young Georgians that'll come make a career with the state of Georgia. And that's what we've been about, is trying to cast a vision so that young people, I want this to be a place people want to come to work. I'd love to be able to go to the College of Agriculture, to ABAC, or to some Ogeechee Tech down in Representative Tanks's area, and say, here's some kids coming through an agribusiness program, and I'd love to be able to ask them and say, what are your top 10 places you'd like to go to work. I'm afraid if I ask them a top 100, I'm not sure we're on it now. Boy, I'd sure love to be on the top 10. But in order to do that, we've got to invest in those folks. So that's where the plea comes.
Well, Commissioner, I appreciate you addressing that. And, I think Georgia, certainly in your department, is a great example of folks who are working hard and certainly receiving less than they deserve. Overall, my feeling is that government workers should expect to have a lesser salary in exchange for security of a government job. But in this case, that really caught all of our attention, I think, in what the attrition rate is costing our state. So I appreciate you providing that information.
You're very kind.
Any other questions? Thank you. And wait, did you?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see you. Okay, I'm sorry. I have two of them that are blanking. Representative Welch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Commissioner, thank you so much for
Yes, sir.
being here this morning. The couple of questions. The amount that's here in the budget we see online dealing with consumer protection. It says that there's a food safety inspector salary adjustment of $388,000 thereabout, and then to fill in the 8 vacancies, $336,000. Now, is this is the total of that is the 724? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So you need, in addition to the 724 that's already been approved by the governor's budget, you need an additional 336,000.
That's what our request was in order to meet that mid-level adjustment in starting salaries. Correct.
And then, can you tell me if there's any departmental savings if we attach the soil conservation to the Department of Agriculture? How much money would be saved in terms of having one HR trying to handle that? Do we know that amount of money saved, and is that already allocated somewhere else in the budget, or is that something we can look at?
Yes, sir. I think I can give us a pretty good shot at that. I know Mr. Dykes, Director Dykes, has for instance, in HR and in budget. I think we had a quick look at about 154,000 that are in two people, and that's fringes and everything for those two. I would tell you that in HR, since we started 3 years ago with 633 people, and I have 521 now. So to put another 45 folks in our HR system over here there's a savings there. Budget's another area, because this would still be an attached agency, and if you'd be asking us to pay their bills and do those kinds of things, my chief financial officer, who I believe is the finest in state government, he needs some help. And so the bottom line is, would there be savings? It would not be necessarily dollar for dollar on HR and budget. We would respectfully ask you to help us a little bit on with a budget person, because it's that won't go away. Roberts, and I fully recognize everybody that sits in this seat tell you they don't have enough. I get that, but I'm telling you, in our budget office, if we take this on, there's a lot of moving parts to Brent's with federal grants and different things that's good. But Robert needs a helper.
Madam Chair, may I follow?
Yes, please.
So, if I'm understanding you correct, Mr. Commissioner, is that that bringing in soil and water it has some financial help, but also creates a little bit additional managerial responsibility.
Yes, sir. Will not be our employees. They won't. They'll still be an attached, just like the fairgrounds. You know, the National Fair is attached to us, and I serve on that board. And so, you know, we have some good bit of communication, much more communication budget-wise. And poultry labs are the same way. Animal veterinary diagnostic laboratories are the same way. They're attached to us. And I think we've last 3 years have had a drastic improvement in the communication with those entities. But we don't construct their budget. We don't pay their bills. In the case of if we pull budget and HR under us for soil and water, we will take on some duties. Now, would you agree with that?
The $154,000 that we're talking about is probably being a savings coming over. Is that being then utilized to try and fill this budget position, the budget position that you need?
Yeah, and I'm kind of shooting from the hip. If we say that's 154 on 2 people, I'd tell you if we're the savings is about 60 grand. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to see if we can figure out a way to help get to the 336 that you need, and I'm trying to figure out if there's any real savings in that shift for attachment. Then we might ought to look at that money to move it over to help with the inspectors. That's where I'm going.
Yes, sir.
Is there, in addition to that may provide us a little bit of money, but it surely won't cover the overall need. I do appreciate it, Mr. Commissioner.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And we recognize, Madam Chair, that this is a journey. It's not necessarily a destination. We won't arrive at the destination this year, but boy, every step in the right direction sure does help. And we're mighty grateful to you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for coming.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. You had a question. I'm so sorry.
I can let him go.
No, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
I kind of like making him get up and get down.
I did.
Jump, Commissioner. No, I'm just. Hey, I want to make sure. I heard the governor. I heard the governor this morning make a comment at the agribusiness breakfast that as I'm sitting here looking at these employee positions that we're trying to ensure that we get the right people and that they stay in the department and doing the job that they need, make sure we got safe food and safe farms coming up. If I heard his number right this morning, he said over the next 30 to 35 years, the expected growth of production was going to have to be at 70% based on the population growth. Is that right?
That's correct. Based on population growth worldwide and based on the expanding economies, because you can recognize when an economy expands in a mid-level country or any third world country, the first currency they get when they get a new buck is they spend that on food. So if you add all that together, the projections, every academic projection that I've seen, the 70% is conservative, and that by 2050 with 9 billion people, you're talking about increasing production by a minimum of 70% over what it is today. And that's why investing in our research universities is important, and that's why building this infrastructure for the next generation is going to be important too.
I think that's a message that we all need to take to heart, because last time I checked, that assembly line on dirt stopped a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And as the population grows, houses grow, roads and infrastructure, the farmland becomes suppressed. So I appreciate what y'all do, and I think as you made a comment, said it's not a destination, it's a journey. We got to have a pretty long scope on this thing, and take to heart what the need is long term, because I see Representative Clark's daughter sitting out there, I believe. Is that right? Correct. When we're all going off this panel, she's going to have a family to feed, and we got to ensure that we have a safety net for them to feed off of. So I appreciate what y'all do, and I hope we can help you here.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Water, soil and water. I always say water and soil.
One came first.
Right.
Yes, ma'am, Chair Lady.
I appreciate you coming back today.
Sure.
We're just trying to get a handle on this consolidation and how many positions are being eliminated and how many positions now. If I understand, according to the zero-based budgeting, there were 16 vacant positions.
Yes, ma'am. Let me get my numbers. That sounds correct.
And, okay, out of the 16 vacant positions, the governor's budget eliminated 10 of those vacant positions. Is that not right?
Actually, it eliminated 12.
Well, it eliminated 10 vacant positions.
10 vacant. Okay, yes, ma'am.
And I think it eliminated, according to my memory,
okay,
it was 10 vacant positions and 2 fill positions.
Actually, it was to go
Let's see what page that's on.
You should have it on your tracking sheet. It was on page 79 of the document I had from Monday. In our administration program, the original as printed version was to eliminate 2 vacant in our administrative program. That's a receptionist and a secretary position that have been
Excuse
vacant.
me just a minute. That's on page 10 of our tracking sheet.
Okay, yes, ma'am. In the administration program, the governor's recommendation as printed eliminated 2 vacant positions in our administration program. That was a receptionist position that we cut funding for multiple years ago related to budget cuts, and another vacant position that became vacant about a year ago that we've held vacant on purpose. It eliminated 5 filled positions and left 1 position in the administration program as printed from the governor's office. The other reductions came in the conservation of soil and water resources program. In that program, there was a reduction or elimination of 10 vacant positions and 2 filled positions in that program. I've had some communication with Tracy regarding the 10 vacant positions in conservation and soil and water resources. Of those 10 current vacant ones, there are 4 actually that are either have been filled since the budget's come out or being filled with grant funds that we'd like to hold on to those vacant positions from a state standpoint, because
Okay.
we either are hiring folks or have folks in those positions. So of those in conservation and soil and water resources, we'd like to keep 4, if that would be a possibility from a standpoint if we have folks either being interviewed now or already on staff. And
How many of you employees are paid by the federal government?
18 of the 38 I have received some type of funding other than state funding. It may not be full federal or other funds, but partial funds. Yes, ma'am.
Representative Welch.
I know, I think you've covered this before, but I'm going to have to ask again.
Yes, sir.
How many of those employees are the salaries entirely funded by federal?
Let's see if I have that before me. Representative, to be honest and get you the accurate number, could I get back to you on that? Because I'm not sure. And my budget officer's here today, but I want to give you the exact number. It's less than half. 3.
3.
My budget officer says 3. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And then the 4 that you want to keep.
Yes, sir.
Tell me who those 4 are, or what those positions are, and
Sure.
who is funding those 4.
Sure. Those 4 positions that I'd like to keep, one of which is an erosion and sediment control specialist that just started Monday with us in our Calhoun office. He reviews erosion control development plans for Northwest Georgia. The second one is an resource specialist position down in our Calhoun office, or up in our Calhoun office also, that is being interviewed, and we're in the hiring stage for that position. We're actually filling it with grant funds. That's 100% grant. If we want to fill that position, that's a position that we took a budget cut in state funding wise multiple fiscal years ago. We've held on the position in hopes that times would get better from a field staff.
Is that a federal grant?
Yes, sir. It's federal funds. Then we have 1 position in our Dawson office down near Albany that is a secretarial position that we hired recently that was vacant at the time the budget was published. And then the 4th and final one is a resource specialist position in our Milledgeville office, which is a regional office also, that's being funded partially with state, federal, and other funds.
How much is what is the salary and benefits for the resource specialist?
Starting salary is 32.
And the last one you mentioned is the only one that's not yet been filled?
Yes, sir. Actually, it's filled with state, federal, and other funds. There is someone in the position currently.
Oh, there is?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. There he is.
Any other questions? Thank you, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. This concludes our hearing.